Welcome to the Annual Planning Framework. I will be your guide. I am Alex Earl, rehab chiropractor and business coach for other rehab chiros, and I'm excited to walk you through the framework that has really been a wonderful resource for me and those that are in our coaching programs for a few years now, and I'm excited to share it with you today. And this is really a combination of different resources that I put together from three different people and one book. And so, for those of you that are wondering, the references here are Colin Boyd, Michael Hyatt, and Paul Goff. Paul is my coach. He's been my coach for many, many years now. And he's really changed the way that I view myself and my business. And I really can't thank him enough for the growth that I've achieved as a business owner. And if you want to, you can go back to our podcast, which is the Clinical Leadership Podcast. You can go back to Paul's episode that I recorded with him that was called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. And it's already one of our top episodes of all time. But this is just a really good presentation about setting yourself up for success and also planning for your success rather than reacting to it. Also planning for necessary setbacks that are outside of our control and how we deal with those setbacks. Like nobody really planned, with the exception of maybe a few people, nobody really planned the COVID pandemic of 2020 and 2021. So then if you created an annual plan in December or January for 2020, those plans went out the window by March 14th, for example, in Illinois, where I was living at the time. Everything changed in early March, and so your plan for the year absolutely needed to pivot. And if you didn't pivot, you might have closed. And a lot of clinics in Illinois and a lot of businesses across the country never pivoted and never reopened. So this is a guide. This is not necessarily a roadmap, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in the coming minutes here. So plan to spend the next 45 minutes with me. Put all the distractions away, put the cell phone away, close down all your other browsers, just focus for 45 minutes. Just focus intensely and intentionally about what I'm going to cover. And then there's going to be some workshop time where you go off. I call it thinking time as well. You're going to go off and you're going to work on an annual plan for you and your business for the next 12 months. And buckle up. Here we go, everybody. So here is, before we go any further, we also need to just give a quick update on our coaching programs for the year. So we have current members of our new Chiro program, which is people that are in business less than 12 months or are looking to start a clinic through the Rehab Chiro business model. We're excited for you guys. But really your number one problem is you need patience, you need top of funnel, and you need to sell plans of care and packages if you're cash based. And we want to teach you and equip you and give you all the confidence to do that in your first 30, 60, 90 days of working with us and to get you to whatever margin you're looking for. A lot of people, it's the 10K. They want to make 10K in a month. So I would be glad to walk you through how to do that. Another update is we've got Kairos, a CRM, and we are creating like a VOD, a videos on demand inside of school. So if you're not watching this video, if you're watching this video on YouTube or you're listening to the audio of this in podcast format, then do me a favor and email Caroline. Her email is admin@mwri.co if you're interested in watching the full video of this with the slides and the associated PowerPoint that I've created here. And then also the other thing is inside of school, if you are a Kairos user, we will have those video on demands on the training modules for everyone that has the CRM Kairos, which is all of our marketing, our automations, our emails, our campaigns, our funnels, our website builders, our review request automations. What else do we have on there? There's A2P integration for text, so you could text appointments and reminders and updates directly to your patients' phones. And there's a lot more that Kairos has to offer. There's payments. You can collect payments. You could schedule payment plans. You can send invoices. There's also membership options. So if you have a large social media following, or you have a particular niche that you work with and you offer virtual coaching or virtual training or virtual sessions, you can also create community groups and or paid memberships inside of the platform, and get paid for having a group for people in your community to stay connected with you. So that's all part of Kairos. We're really excited about that. Kairos basically is the Greek for a opportune time. An opportune time. Remember, there's Chronos and there's Kairos. So Chronos is there's a quantity of time, and then Kairos is quality of time or an opportune time. And so there's a little play on word because we are functional rehab Kairos. And so I just like to kind of play on words with that. But anyways, that's enough of that. Let's talk about the Midwest Mastermind. Currently, the 2024-2025 mastermind will be unchanged. Everyone will get a one-on-one call with me. You have to fill out your prep document, and the calls will still be scheduled for an hour. But if there's some action items that you or I need to work on, then we're going to cut it about 5 or 10 minutes short, and then I'm going to get you the resources. That we discuss, because what's happened is the amount of one-on-one calls I've been going through. At the end of the day, I am falling behind on some of the things, and I don't like not being a man of my word. I don't like telling people I'm going to get them something, and I've just ran out of time by the end of the day, which is a pitfall in the one-on-one coaching world. So I want to just bake into the time, the 5 to 10 minutes it would take for me to get you a product or a resource or a response to something specific. So I want to just give you an update on that. We are making the in-person and or virtual events required with your membership. So please make that a priority. Put holidays on your calendar. Put key family dates, anniversaries, weddings, birthdays, kids' birthdays, dogs, pet birthdays, whatever, your birthday. But then, shortly right after that, then put your CEU events on the calendar and make it a priority. And that includes our business events as well. The mastermind, I'll share with you at the end all of the things that I think you should that I'm going to ask you to block off and make it a commitment to get to. A lot of work goes into getting these events set up, and so it just helps us plan. It's very difficult to plan when we don't know who's coming, so we're just making it a requirement that everybody that's a part of both programs, the mastermind and New Cairo, you're coming. So another thing with the mastermind program is we are going to change up the structure of our weekly calls. So week one is going to remain a heavy marketing discussion, and we'll talk about what's working, what's not working in the marketing world for functional rehab Kairos. And week two will continue on with sales. Week three, and this is the different setup. Week three will be clinical. We're going to be discussing certain scenarios, cases, pain patterns. We'll talk maybe techniques, so DNS, PRI, BFR, ART, dry needling, acupuncture. We'll be able to apply those to our PACE accreditation, so everyone can get at least 1 hour of CEU each month um, virtually. And then by the end of the year, the goal is that you've had 12 hours of online education that you can apply, included in your membership, apply towards your um, licensing, relicensing, or license verification requirements. So we're excited to do that. It won't just be me, by the way. We'll get some guest speakers to come in and present, or we'll get people to talk about a specific thing, like maybe we'll get Alec to talk about shockwave. We'll get maybe JC to talk about golf, things like that, where we'll just get people in specific niches to talk about something that they find interesting and fascinating that they can share with us. Week four, we'll continue on with the financial as well as operational needs and challenges of the mastermind. So that includes the ABR, or as I call it, always be recruiting, hiring, firing, the management of our people. Absolutely, that is a different skill entirely. There's learning the skills that it takes to be a clinician, and then learning the skills it takes to run a business, and then there's learning the skills that it takes to manage people. And I have to say, in nearly a decade of being a business owner, that third and final step or stage has been the most difficult. Um, but this is not a hiring or firing workshop. This is a planning, annual planning. So it will definitely talk more about managing people and staff later. Week 5, if there is a fifth Wednesday in the month, which I think there might only be one or two in 2025, we'll get some corporate sponsors to come in and talk about their specific product or service. We'll also get some guest speakers to come in, especially if they will be speaking at the mastermind events. We'll have a nice Q&A time to pick their brains. Industry experts we're going to try to get lined up for the year. So we're excited about that. Now, here are the 3 business ventures that I've got going on in 2025. I've got our clinic in Illinois, in Carroll Stream, Illinois. I've got our Midwest Rehabilitation Institute, chiropractic, PT, rehab-oriented education, and rehab-oriented coaching and consulting, as well as Kairos, the software. Um, and so I want to show you guys how you can leverage software through Kairos or other CRMs, that are available out there. I just so happen to create one that I think is more comprehensive, and it allows functional rehab Kairos, like really everything that we need in one place. I got tired of all the subscriptions. I read an article once that was called "Death by Subscriptions," and that was me with all of the SaaS, the like software as a service. I got tired of all of the monthly memberships I was paying. I just wanted to pay one, and it didn't really exist. So me and a couple of people created Kairos, and we're really excited for it. If you're interested in Kairos as well, shoot me an email, admin@mwri.co, and I'll give you a live walkthrough about all that Kairos can do for you and your business. But anyways, we're going to talk about Kairos as well because it does help with workshops and automations and everything. But I think it is really important to just pause for a second before we dive into like what a actual recipe of a or the framework. I know I use that word. What it actually looks like to plan, because as Mike Tyson famously said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And one thing is you can't be exceptionally rigid to the plan. You do have to have some flexibility. But having said that, I do like these quotes, from Mike Tyson just a minute ago, and then also Dwight D. Eisenhower summarized it as well by saying, "In preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." And basically, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable means that while a specific detailed plan might not always work out perfectly in the face of certain circumstances, the process of planning itself is crucial for understanding a given situation. So, identifying potential challenges and setting a clear direction to move forward. This is essentially, the value of annual planning lies in the thought process behind it, not just the rigid adherence to a written plan. I think that's one of my biggest faults in creating an annual plan was I would get so irritated when things didn't go to plan. And the interesting thing there is I was dealing with other human beings that didn't either know my plan or if they were patients and they were coming into my world, they weren't always operating in my environment that I thought I needed or I needed to cultivate in order to achieve my plan because they have their own plan. It's kind of like playing a game, playing a sport where the opponent they might know your game plan, they might not, but they are also allowed to pivot. And if they pivot, then you also must adapt. You don't you see, especially in the world of soccer right now, you see halftime is a great opportunity to address how the other team is playing and make necessary adjustments. And some of the best coaches in the world make the most meaningful adjustments at halftime, and then their team have a higher likelihood of going on to win the game. That's really what separates a good coach from a world-class coach is they recognize the terrain, they recognize the game, they recognize the atmosphere, they recognize their game plan, but they also are aware enough to the opponent's game plan, and then they can adjust their plan accordingly. So I hope you get that. I'm not advocating for you to write down 12 months of marketing and rigidly adhere to it. No, there's much more going on, and you do need to have the flexibility to pivot. All right. So why even do annual planning then if things aren't going to go exactly to plan? Well, the value, as I mentioned a minute ago, is not in the plan itself. The value is in the planning. The value is in the planning. And along those same lines, I've seen over the years three common mistakes when it comes to annual planning. Business owners make three crucial mistakes when it comes to planning. Number one, they substitute the description of the destination for a roadmap. This is by far the most common. This is where there's a generalization and there's not a specific, clear plan. There are more of an idea than they are a plan. I know I mentioned that a little bit later, but let me just repeat that generalization kills clarity. All right, generalization kills clarity. This is where people they put out the lofty, ambitious goal for the year, um, and they like the idea of it, but also they 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 don't necessarily know the necessary steps to get there. But they view almost like you're on a journey. They view the landmarks, they view the milestones as confirmation that they are on the right path towards their desired destination. When in reality, it is not about the destination. It's not about the roadmap to the destination. It's also about being able to be flexible. We see this with patients as well when we map out a plan of care for them, that they think that their journey, this is probably a better example of this, they think their journey is going to be linear. They hurt today, and in 1 week they'll be a little bit better. In 1 month they'll absolutely be better, and maybe and definitely a year from now they should have no pain, right? Because they've just been told to rest. So the roadmap says rest and take it easy, and you'll be fine. But we know that the road to recovery is undulating. There'll be peaks and there'll be valleys, but as long as that trajectory is headed upwards, we're actually in the right direction. So it's not a 7-step plan to your best year yet. It's here's one plan, but I'm also flexible on where this could go wrong and where this could go right. But the generalization will kill your clarity, as I mentioned a few times. More on that in a little bit. Number two, falling in love with the dream or destination. Falling in love with it, but not having a clear idea or clear metrics in front of you on how you actually get to the destination itself. Number three, creating a 10-year plan. And I think this is crazy. I think this is crazy. This is more of a wish than an idea, right? And then, once you step out of that phase, then it's more of an idea than a plan. There are so many moving parts in business, and the world is unpredictable. And so it is, with all the moving parts in business and the world, to predict an accurate view of the future, it is very difficult, right? As I mentioned earlier, COVID, anyone, nobody except a few people, predicted or had an idea of what was going on. Everybody else was caught completely off guard. So here's a problem with failing to plan. Number one is you are in a constant state of reacting to the most of the problems today. All right. You're playing whack-a-mole. What problem am I facing today? I'm going to go after that problem. And what I like about this is if you're reacting, you're already too late and tired. And as someone with 5 kids and 2 golden doodles, I can attest to being too tired in different phases of business ownership. If you're only, if only problems end up on your desk, I even think recently Elon Musk was interviewed and said, "What's it like being a CEO of so many multi-billion-dollar companies?" And he said, "It's not as attractive as people think being a CEO. Really, all I do is I address the problems that land on my desk. It's really not as glorious as people think it is. You're really only dealing with problems. So if you're not aware or if you're not interested in dealing with problems, then don't be a CEO." And that is very true. That is very true. Really, very rarely does something good your business is doing or something good your people are doing, does that land on your desk. Usually it is almost always there's something wrong, it's urgent, and it needs your attention. Um, you will not know where you are going, right? If you don't plan, you will not know where you're going, where you are when you get there, or where you've been when it's over. You will be completely unaware. And number two, Unclear expectation. Edward Deming famously said, if you can't describe the plan or the process to achieve the plan, then you don't know what you're doing. I ask that to employees all the time. What's the plan? What does the process look like for you to achieve the plan and be successful in your role? And if you can't answer that question, then I look at them and I tell them you don't know what you're doing, which is a competency, which is a core competency, right? It's not a confidence issue, it's a competency issue. And I'm finding that most people are incompetent at some things and they're competent at others. And the interview process, the identifying where they are competent and where they are incompetent is crucial to the hiring process. But this is not a hiring training. This is more of an annual planning, but it is important to know by being clear with your expectations for them. But most people are unclear. So therefore, if you don't have a plan, then most people won't have clear expectations on how they need to be succeeding in their role. So if you cannot get clarity on the plan to achieve the outcome, change the outcome. Change it, especially for employees. If you can't get clarity, if they can't get clarity, then we need to pivot and we need to change the outcome. So I call it thinking time. Here are a list of questions that, as I ask them, you don't have to answer them right now, but come back to this later. And if you're listening to this on our podcast, then just pause it and think through the next series of questions. All right. So here we go. Thinking time. Am I executing on an idea or a plan? If it is an idea, what would a plan need to look like? Since a plan is always executable, do I know what actions need to be done next week, next month, next quarter to move the needle toward my desired outcome? Does my team know what they are supposed to be doing to get us from here to there? If so, what is that specifically? What are my current results deviating? Where are my current results deviating from my plan? What are the critical drivers to measure the effectiveness of my plan? Were there some faulty assumptions in my current plan? If so, where? These are very, very helpful questions to ask. All right, annual planning goals. If you're going to do a 2-day annual planning, now we're going to dive into the framework. So this will go by pretty quick. Annual planning goals. Day 1, we want to give a state of the business. We want to celebrate last year's achievements. So in this case, celebrate 2024 achievements. We want to impose some strategic thinking time. It can't just be tactical. We also want to empower our people and ourselves to think strategically. We want to address challenges within the business, and we want to provide some opportunities to problem solve 2024 or last year's issues so that we can turn and pivot that into 2025 growth. And then the second day is basically the action plan. This is our marketing plan for quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're going to talk about key takeaways so that people can feel empowered and excited and have that extra jolt of passion and enthusiasm for the job. So day 1. This is usually the first 90 minutes. It's the state of the business where the CEO is going to share statistics, revenue, and targeted KPIs if you feel comfortable sharing those financial metrics. Obviously, I never share employees' salaries and what they make. The quickest way to start a revolt is to share everyone's salary. The most transparent organizations, they establish buy-in with their employees by sharing total revenue, where they just show, similar to like a church, like some of the best, most respected leaders share where all the money goes when the church gets tithes and offerings, and how that money gets allocated. And who's in charge of the money. That's what I do. I try to just share where all the money is going. I share where expenses need to be addressed, so that I'm not just sitting here spending all the money or taking it in myself. I show where it's all allocated, and also I try to highlight the growth of the clinic. And growth is not just revenue; it's also staff, it's resources, it's equipment, it's opportunities. So we try to highlight all of those. And then this annual planning provides a wonderful opportunity to remind staff of the company values, commitments, and establish the reasons of why we're in business, why we do what we do. And so it's a very good opportunity to refresh their memory. Right? I've said previously, I'm a friendly reminder service as to why I hired you, and just remind them the reasons why their role is so important. Right? I hired them. Right? This is another question I asked them. Essentially, I hire people to solve problems within my business, not to create new ones. So I ask people all the time, why did I hire you? Not as an accusation, but as a reminder. I hired you to solve a problem in my business, or I hired you to pursue an opportunity that was worth exploring that I don't have the bandwidth for, but I know that it's essential towards our business's goals. So those are the only two reasons why you should consider hiring is that you have a problem, a leaky bucket perhaps in your business, or you have really good opportunities, but you're very full already in the treatment room. Perfectly fine. But now you need to hire someone to go pursue those opportunities, right? So continuing on with day one. Next 90 minutes, we're going to recap the year and celebrate each individual wins. This includes, I print out the 5 Bullet Friday email that each one of our staff submit to me every Friday. The staff submit to me just a quick bulleted email. It's not a, it's basically headlines only. And there's 5 questions they got to answer, and they got to type them, they got to email them to me. And I print those out and I put them on the wall and I show everyone, hey, look at everything that you accomplished this year. Pretty cool. Then we review each employee's personal goals for the year, review your personal goals for the year as well. And then for the next 90 minutes, think about this. For the next 90 minutes, we do alone time. No phone, only emergencies only, and we do some thinking time. We visualize everything that we did in 2024, and then we want to visualize everything we want to achieve in 2025. And then we write down 3 things. One meaningful personal goal, which could be maybe you want to pay off your car, you want to buy a new car, maybe somebody wants to do something, buy their house, buy a house for the first time this year. Um, and then there's one professional goal, like I want to get, like Andy Park got DNS certified this year, or I guess last year in 2024, and just passed his test this fall. So like, huge congratulations to Andy. That was a professional goal that he had in 2024. So he can check that box like he did that. And also we have one spiritual goal, for the upcoming year. And it doesn't matter what your faith is. I'm a Christian. I'm a man of faith. So I have a spiritual goal that me and my family set aside, and something that we wanted to pursue together as a family. And so those are things that we want to write down. All right. Day one, then we bring in lunch. Then from 1:30 to 3:30, so the next 90-minute block, the front desk office manager, or if you have an operations manager, they're responsible for preparing this block. And if you're a solopreneur, then that's you, because you wear every hat. So then this is the block of information that needs to be addressed in this next section. Addressing the problems and opportunities within the business. All right, that's huge. That might take longer than 90 minutes because the problems might divulge in, or not, it might divert into a very healthy conversation amongst staff. And if you're honest with yourself, if you're a solopreneur and you're addressing the problems in the business, it might be that you are a solopreneur and that the problem is that you are the problem and that you need to start building a team. And so you might figure out that, oh, you know what, there's an opportunity to bring someone in for just 5 hours a week to help me with email. I need to hire someone for 5 hours a week to help me manage my schedule. That's why I've hired Caroline. She's in charge of optimizing my schedule. If you want to get in touch with me, you email Caroline, admin@mwri.co. She looks at the schedule. She figures out a time that works for you. She corroborates it with my schedule. Meanwhile, I'm off doing other things like recording this lecture that I'm able to leverage and use for additional marketing materials down the road to get more people into my ecosystem, rather than 15, 20 times a week taking 15 to 20 minutes going back and forth texting with people. At this point, my time is too valuable to be sitting here going back and forth with people for 3 to 4 hours a week. That's time lost because there's opportunity costs in everything, and so there are trade-offs to all of the decisions that we make. And I'm making a choice to live very intentionally with my wife and kids, but then also very intentional to when I'm working, I'm distraction free, and I'm working in a very focused environment to get my stuff done. And I think that that's what a lot of you also need to focus on as an opportunity in the next 12 months. All right. So next thing we do a group activity. where we don't just throw all the mud on the wall and just see what sticks and say, all right, great, that's the problem, that's what we're going to fix. No, we move on and we start actively starting to problem solve the issues in the business, and that basically starts our new year strategic marketing. And so this is where we get our ideas out, and this is where I ultimately have the final say. You will ultimately have the final say, but at the end of the day, we got to get the group involved, and so that does take a while. And here are some questions that help prompt discussion. All right, I'm sure you've heard of this before, but we go based off of the KISS acronym. Number one, what do we want to keep doing? Number two, I. So what do we really need to improve upon for next year? S, first S, what should we stop doing immediately to achieve our 2025 goals? Second S, what should we start doing immediately to achieve our 2025 goals? So what should we keep doing? What should we improve? What should we stop? And what should we start doing? And then to recap the day, 30 minutes from, last 30 minutes of the day, we just share 3 key takeaways of the day. And usually those are gems. Those are really good takeaways that everyone's got to contribute. All right. And then day 2, 2 hours of patient mapping. So the first 2 hours of the day, we're going to start off going to the whiteboard, mapping out every step of the way, from marketing to workshops to paid ads to digital ads to non-digital ads to word of mouth referral to our in-house culture of referrals. I'm going to be doing a podcast more on that in January here on how to create a culture of referrals. So all of that gets mapped out. And so we go to the whiteboard. Then we discuss implementation of the plan. So we outline and we identify 3 problems and then 3 opportunities, right? And then for us, here's an example. It will be a fully operational clinic. So for a long time, I was teaching seminars and I was organizing seminars that were, Friday travel, Saturday, Sunday seminar, Monday home. And that was a lot. And I did that for 6 or 7 years. And then I would treat patients Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we were only open 3 days a week, and then I cut down half a Wednesday to be an admin day. So we were really open for a long time. We were only open 2.5 days a week. And so now for us in 2025, problem number 1 is we have the demand for more days of the week. We have patients requesting more days of the week than just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So problem number 1 leads us to opportunity number 1. We want to be a fully operational clinic, open 5 days a week by March 2025, with 3 providers and 2 admin team members, one front desk, 1 full-time, and 1 part-time patient account specialist, basically in charge of making sure people have a plan of care, and they are sticking to it, they're paying for it, and so yeah, that's really in charge of patient accounts. So that's the goal there. Then after that, again, we have lunch. Then we actually pivot after lunch and we go to marketing strategies for quarters 1 and 2. All right. And then in the afternoon, 3 to 4:30, we will go through marketing strategies for quarters 3 and 4. And then again, we do the same thing. We do last 30 minutes, we do annual plan recap and 3 key takeaways. Now, the interesting thing about marketing strategies for quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4 is this is where we designate who does what by when. So it's not just ideas going on the whiteboard. This is where we actually document and write down, okay, front desk is responsible for this by this date. Great, we're going to hold you accountable to that. CEO is responsible for this by this date. Great, the group is going to hold me responsible for that. And so this is where the accountability loop comes in, which I believe most people are really interested in learning about. And most people don't like accountability, but most people like the idea that they can't just coast. They like the idea of getting stuff done. And I know that if I have a deadline that my team are going to hold me responsible to, they will oftentimes be more understanding and more accommodating than I am for myself. And that's because I hold myself to a much higher standard. So continuing on with the annual planning framework, one of the things that I do like to share are the state of the business. So this is where I discuss the financials. This is where we discuss the organizational chart of this year and next year. So we're planning for our growth so that as opportunities arise, as new people come into the business, it catches nobody off guard because we talked about it. We talked about the different roles. There might be a need to hire a mid-level manager, and if a mid-level manager just gets hired and then they show up to work, then everybody who they report to are going to be completely caught off guard, and immediately you're going to be met with resistance. Immediately you're going to be met with resistance. Um, that is just human nature. But if I walk alongside the frontline worker, if I want to call them the entry level worker, or people that aren't yet being managed by a mid level manager, then if I come up to them and say, "Hey, I need your help. I'm things are getting out of control. We almost need someone to come in. Can we come together and formulate a plan so that we get someone to come in and help me juggle all these things? What do you think we should we hire a manager? Do you want to be the manager? Do you know anyone that would be interested in managing this entity?" So now you're almost bringing them into the decision making. It's ultimately your decision, but you're including them, which is not met with as much resistance, if any. Every time I've asked an employee for help, they are very eager to help. Every time I've just imposed something on an employee that changes either who they report to or the chain of command, so to speak, it's almost always met with resistance. And I think that's just because it's human nature. Um, and then we also go through a refresher course on the company core values, and we call these non-negotiables. And I do talk about a company, what it takes to have a high quality culture and a high quality company morale. Updates on each role's big three performance metrics. Sometimes these change, sometimes they don't, but this is a great time to provide an update on everyone's big three. Remember, the big three is specifically designed to let people know this is what it takes to win in your job, in your role. And if you nail these three things, then we know you're winning. If you don't nail these three things, then you are losing. And I'm not afraid to say that. If you nail these things, you're winning. If you are not nailing it, you're losing them. If you're losing them, then there will be consequences and most likely modified pay, modified responsibilities, and or dismissal. That the stakes are that high. But also, I don't want to be giving people 17 pages to memorize. I just want them to be given three metrics that they are responsible for. All right. And then at the end, I do give them an outline of my desired goals for the year because ultimately it is my business. It is not their business. I take in all the ideas, but then I get to decide what it is we're actually going to act on. And then I get to delegate. Action items for each individual within the business. And again, if you're a solopreneur, then you get to delegate to no one, and you have action items for yourself. Or this might be a good opportunity to delegate something small and get something off your plate as quickly as possible. So this I'm going to walk you through it. So this is what we do. We give a state of the business. So just a refresher, this is directly from our homepage. This is kind of like the main message on our homepage of our website, that we help active individuals recover from injury and maximize performance in order to continue competing in the activity, sport, or event they love. And this is the kicker that most people resonate with, even when they've been told they need more rest, they need more drugs, or they need surgeries, oftentimes unnecessary surgeries. Here is our ideal perfect patient. And I recommend you guys write down who you think your ideal customer is. In the Innovator Program, which I'll be going through in February and March, every Tuesday in February and March, I'll talk about that at the end. We talk about how you actually create your ideal perfect patient. So here's our ideal patient, which is Luke. And the key thing here is at the very end, Luke is willing to pay for our unique service. He is willing to pay an average of $3,000 out of pocket for a plan of care. Next up, we have our organizational chart, where I have a breakdown of what we look like in 2024 and a breakdown of where we're headed and all the different additions, subtractions, and pivots that will take place in our organizational chart in 2025. State of the business, I remind them that our vision statement is to redefine healthcare in Chicagoland. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is us. That's what we're trying to do. And our mission, which is more so like, Active Health and Restoration, which is trademarked now. It is an officially trademarked entity. So Active Health and Restoration is an industry-changing chiropractic company. AHR provides clinical education and individualized treatments to athletes of all ages, along with individuals who have not achieved expected results through the traditional medical system, which is failing millions of people every year in this country. The traditional medical system is great. It is not ideal. It does not take you from normal to optimal. I think we can all agree the traditional medical system might get you normal or normalized, but that does not mean you are optimal. If you're interested in more on that, read the book Outlive by Peter Attia. Talks about fast death versus slow death versus health span, and talks about normal does not equal optimal. So what we're trying to communicate to patients is that we are trying to recreate or redefine what you're capable of, and therefore we need you to be functioning optimally. And so who gets to determine what's optimal? If your lab results come back, hemoglobin A1C is within the normal range, does that mean you're optimal? We would say no, that does not mean you're optimal. That means you are normal. But normal does not mean optimal. So this is all done in a positive environment that cultivates exceptional results. I have to say, we have fun. We have a dynamic, high energy, highly effective clinic that is, it attracts a certain personnel. It attracts a certain clientele. The music is different. The lighting is different. The colors on the wall are different. All of that it's specifically designed to cultivate exceptional results. And since we are oftentimes the third, fourth, or eighth medical, health, or fitness related place patients and clients seek, we must be default aggressive. We are going to be default aggressive, which means we're going to challenge patients physically, socially, and emotionally by we're going to challenge their load capacity in order to identify the lowest hanging fruit in their clinical presentation and target that accordingly. Basically what I'm saying here is if someone comes in and we're the fifth chiropractor that they've seen, we're not adjusting them, thinking that we are going to be the best chiropractor that they've seen, give them the best adjustment of their life. We are going to look at it differently and think, rather than instilling additional motion into this one segment, could we possibly challenge it a different way? If we can, let's do that. And so we give we we have the right, we reserve the right to not adjust a patient, even if that's a thing that they say they want. And again, maybe that makes us terrible chiropractors. I think that it makes us patient-centered. If 3 or 4 other chiropractors are adjusting someone's neck and they still have neck pain and shoulder pain or jaw pain, I think that to be truly patient-centered means you do what's necessary for the patient, not necessarily what is in your toolbox. If you've been to any one of my classes and you've heard me talk about the myth of or the fallacy of the toolbox analogy, chiropractors are guilty of it all over this country and all over the world. So here are some pillars of movement that we look at. If you're interested in that, make sure you can go through these 8 steps or these 8 assessments very quickly. A lot of them are DNS driven, PRI driven, neurodynamic driven, functional movement driven. So a lot of these, if you're in this world, are not new. These are just the pillars that we look at through the movement lens that we are trained in. And then what a lot of people want to know are like the words that are not spoken at our clinic. And I just give our staff and especially our providers a reminder that these are words that are not spoken at Active Health. We don't use imbalance, unstable, asymmetrical, knots, adhesions, weakness, dysfunction, or anything about alignment. We don't say things are out of alignment. Instead, what we do is we do pivot and we say things like, well, you're pretty strong on your right and you're even stronger on your left, rather than saying your left glute is weak. Sometimes we say things, well, it's not ideal, but I've seen worse. And then sometimes when we see faulty movements through that kinesiopathologic model, right, that Shirley Sarman model about faulty movements and the need for corrective exercise. And there's nothing wrong inherently with trying to improve the way that someone moves, but the whole, red X and green arrow for doing things, or green check mark for doing things right, it is really black and white. And a lot of what we see in our clinic is there are definitely shades of gray. And so what we like to discuss and ask patients about is it efficient for you? The way that you just moved, it might not be efficient for someone else. It might be efficient for someone else, but is it efficient for you? And the last question we like to ask them is your body adequately prepared to tolerate that load, that activity, that stress, that movement? If the answer is yes, then great. Let's continue to pick at that. Let's continue to pursue it. If not, let's pivot and let's do something else that accomplishes the same goal. Here's an example that I said to a patient, and I wrote it down. I said, I'm not convinced, as I could be wrong here, right? I've been wrong before, and I'll be wrong again sometime, but it doesn't appear to be a muscle weakness issue. I know you've been told that you have weak glutes, but it looks like to me a complete timing issue of the movement. And what I mean by that is that the muscles are the effect, but the cause is the timing issue. So you're feeling it in, the muscle, the piriformis, the glutes, the sciatic area, but the cause is actually a timing issue. You're feeling the painful effects. I want to treat the cause, which is a timing issue, which provided some peace of mind, knowing that the patient just needed to tidy up her timing rather than increasing strength in glutes. It was timing on a squat and lunge and hip hinge movement, and noticed that there was a different. I just noticed that there was a timing issue between hips, pelvis, and lumbar spine, not moving in unison, but rather moving in a little helter skelter way that was adding load to the lumbar spine. So, active health culture. Culture is made up by the attitudes, behaviors, um, motivators, and motivators that are comprised by the values and perspectives of its employees. That's the culture. But really, that's kind of the theoretical or like textbook definition. In practical terms, culture is basically how the staff behave when the boss is not around, how the current employees teach the new employees how they're expected to perform. I did witness this when I had a longtime employee working for me and I hired a new employee, and the new employee was taught very bad habits by the longtime employee. And so ultimately, it's my responsibility to come in and remind everyone this is what is expected of you, not what another employee has taught. So culture can go both ways. It can really be like the kindling on a fire, and you could take off and things could work out really well, or it could be just detrimental to your business. And so you really have to monitor the culture. Um, and so obviously, I live in Tennessee and the clinic is in Illinois. So one of the ways that I keep people on their toes is I do spontaneous calls. I don't have any cameras. Um, but I do spontaneous calls, and then I will randomly show up to the clinic unannounced, and that's absolutely to keep everyone fresh, keep everyone on their toes, and I reserve the right to do that. It's after all, it's my business. I won't let one employee corrupt another employee, and then just let things fester and create a wedge in my business. And so it's my responsibility. So here are some culture things that are mantras, that are core values that we say over and over again. That we only hire people with unrelenting integrity, who do the right thing at the right time and for the right reasons. Those who have brave character. Remember from the book Integrity by Henry Cloud, the psychologist, that the definition of character is the ability to face the demands of reality. And we also call it tight. Obviously, someone that lives 650 miles away from my physical business, I can't let small things slide over the course of a day, a week, a month, or a year. Otherwise, I will have built a business that I do not recognize. And it's my responsibility to instill a culture where people call it tight, where we alter one's ability to process and handle feedback constructively. Also, the Japanese call it kaizen, which is a continual learning state. So if you aren't sharpening the saw, someone else is. Our competitors are learning and improving. That includes they're learning and improving social media content and ads, and yeah, they're learning all sorts of new things. And so it is important that we learn from a professional development standpoint. We learn both business skills and we learn clinical skills. Absolutely, the clinical skills can't be overlooked. because I say this all the time to people, that you have to grow clinically and you have to grow your business skills, because if your business skills are improving and you're charging more and you're touting your exceptional patient results, you better be getting results. So if you're not improving clinically, then you're charging more but getting worse results than you would have if you had just pursued better clinical outcomes. So maybe said differently, just don't suck. You need to improve your business skills, but also you need to improve your clinical skills as well. And then I took this from Jocko Willink's book, which is called Extreme Ownership, which is unmitigated daily discipline in all things. Do everything every single day, even if you don't feel like it. And passion for the brand. How one communicates their work in everyday life, how someone does anything is how they do everything, is something that I say all the time. We only hire those who are passionate about what we do here at AHR and why. All right. And also, we are people first and we are a business second. We also say patients first, business second. We make decisions that are best for the patient, not necessarily best for the business. That's a bit controversial. However, as a believer in Christ, I don't feel it is consistent with my faith to make decisions that benefited the business at the expense of a patient. Maybe that makes me a horrible business owner, and that is a hill that I'm willing to die on. That is, they say beliefs are something you live by, convictions are something that you would die for. That is a conviction that I have. I am willing to sacrifice business success in order to not exploit, in order to not do a patient wrong. If I know that they don't benefit from my care, I feel like it is the most responsible thing to get them out of our office and get them into the appropriate office of the provider that can help them. And that's what we mean by patient first. All right. Default aggressive, as I mentioned earlier, we are clear of mind when engaging with patients and with clients and patients to deliver unrivaled healthcare, which produces exceptional results. Let me give you a couple of examples. We talk about act versus feel. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't give you permission to act on that feeling. Just because you feel you're disrespected does not give you the right to act on that feeling. No job is too small. If the trash needs to be picked up, pick it up, take it out. If the laundry needs to be done, do the laundry. All right. If you see it, own it. If you see it and do nothing, you are culpable, right? That's a quote from I believe it was Napoleon that was talking about soldiers and generals in his army. That if your general was giving you advice or giving you battlefield strategy and you knew it was wrong and you said nothing, he told soldiers that they were also culpable, which in essence means directly or indirectly responsible. And so here he is telling soldiers that they are responsible for the generals making mistakes. Because if they knew it was a mistake and said nothing, they are now bearing the responsibility. So no job is too small, but also if you see something, you need to own it and you need to communicate it. If something isn't being done properly, it needs to be communicated. You cannot just keep it to yourself. All right. Achieve exceptional results. Let your results do the talking, not you. All right. Make it right when you get it wrong. Apologize and learn from mistakes. If you need to make it right, then make it right. Communicate clearly and confidentially. If the other party cannot repeat back to you what was communicated, they didn't understand you. All right. So one of the things we like to tell patients is, thanks for coming in today. Thanks for going through the exam. Just to test, just to check. When you go home and talk to your spouse or parents, based on everything that we've talked about today, how are you going to communicate what we discussed today? What are you going to communicate, to them about what we discussed today? Could you repeat to me what you're going to say to them, just so I make sure you understand what we talked about? And then you get a glimpse as to how well you communicated or not. All right. Works above the current pay level. This is interesting. You get to see that someone has not settled for where they're at currently with the job that they have, but ultimately that they're working towards the job that they want one day, right? And I want you to remember this. I want you to write this down. If someone's job is too small for them, or if they've grown too big for their job, they will come to you with opportunities and questions that are more growth or opportunistic. All right. That's someone that's looking to pursue the next job that they want to have someday within your organization. And the opposite is also true. When the job is too big for someone, all you will hear are excuses as to why they aren't doing the things that you hired them to do. So if all you're hearing is excuses, chances are you've given that person too much responsibility, you've not given them enough resources, or it's not clear for them and they don't have enough determination to figure out what it is you want. And so they either aren't a good fit for your organization, or they are simply a worker bee that will just clock in and clock out. But you need to micromanage them. Absolutely, they need to be micromanaged. Over deliver. We also want to under promise, and we want to over deliver. All right, we're not whizzing on someone's leg and telling them it's raining. We are doing the opposite. We are making sure that we are not guaranteeing results and overhyping small wins. No, no, we are downplaying our importance, and we are always celebrating the results that our patients have earned. All right. Just a couple more here. So, what is morale? The morale of a company reflects the collective feelings of the employees at a given time. You can just feel it, feel it. It is possible that people could have shared values, the right attitude, similar perspectives, behave well, but still feel unfulfilled for whatever reason for a period of time. Absolutely. Low morale doesn't mean that we have bad staff or rotten culture. It just means that all or some of the following are missing: clarity, consistency, or perceived fairness. So without clarity, um, which is basically clarity is primarily this is what it takes to succeed around here.